Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Welcome in, front officers. I thought I'd give that one a try. Just kind of try it on, see how it feels. We'll go from there. We'll figure it out at some point. But front officers, I don't know, not terrible, not terrible. Welcome in though. If you're coming in from YouTube, make sure you do subscribe right here to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. And I've been saying it at the end of the show, so I'm gonna say it at the beginning this time. Go over to the podcast version as well over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Help us out. This really does help us. Toss us a rating. If you're on Spotify, toss us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a little comment. Tell us what nickname you like best for Front Office Show viewers or listeners, whatever it is. Tell us something and put it in the review. We do appreciate it. It definitely does help us out. But anyway, all that aside.
Hold on, I got to read this
Oh,
review
yes, yeah.
because this one came in just this week, and
Let's
I
do
love it. It's from Lakers Girl 24
Great
Forever.
name. Great name.
They thinking she's a Kobe fan. Best podcast around for news around the NBA. Keith is very knowledgeable about this stuff and has a great passion for the NBA. Trevor is a fun host that is great at navigating the direction of the show every day. Trevor is a Lakers fan, which makes the pod even better. So I love that one. But yeah, we do. These are huge especially when you do the written review. It helps us move up the list and get more people listening to the podcast version, which may bring them eventually over to the YouTube version of the show. So thank you guys so much for all the support. We love you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People have been calling us the best kept secret in NBA podcasts. Let's not keep it a secret. Let's get the word out. Let's get the word out.
Yeah, tell everybody.
Absolutely. Keith, let's start the show today with the Lakers because I'm biased. No, it just happens to be the top of my
That's
of
for
my,
you, Lakers Girl 24
There
Forever.
it is, just for you. Happens to be the top of my document here, but the Lakers, according to Dave McMenamin, talking with Adrian Wojnarowski, said that the Lakers are going to have a hard time re-signing Malik Monk. Now, this is not rocket science or anything. He's grossly outperformed, or greatly outperformed, I should say, his contract. He's on a veteran minimum deal right now. He's been fantastic for the Lakers, and he's going to get a raise this offseason. The Lakers don't have cap space, so trying to pay him is going to be tough when most likely they're going to be limited to that taxpayer mid-level exception. Probably will get outbid for him, but we'll see what winds up happening there. But I think McMenamin is right. It will be tough for them to bring him back.
Yeah, it was already a surprise when he took the minimum anyway, because it was relatively early-ish in free agency. We still had a lot of teams with their taxpayer, at least the taxpayer, if not the full non-taxpayer MLE left. And I think there were still a couple teams with cap space left at the time he signed on. But clearly, I think his idea was, I'm going to sign on. I'm going to play a big role on a title contender, and then we'll parlay that into something else. But to your point, just I'm not trying to be snide here. I promise, but they're already committed to $145 million on next season's payroll. I'm projecting Kendrick Nunn and Russell Westbrook pick up their options in that scenario. We know Westbrook will. That's a certainty. Nunn, I'm just, the more likely it looks like he doesn't play this season, the more likely I think, he's just going to say, I'll take my 5.25 million versus, gambling on something else this summer. So when you're at 145 million, well, the tax line projects to be 147 million. Now, why Trevor's saying they're limited to the taxpayer mid-level? Yeah, you're under, but that's with a grand total of 5 players on the roster. And you know what? I'm actually wrong. They're at 146.5 because I forgot to count in Austin Reeves, who clearly they won't let
They'll
go
pick up
because
his.
he's been
They have a team option.
He's a bargain. Yeah, exactly. They'll make his deal fully guaranteed at 1.56 million. So they're right there at the tax line with 6 players on the roster. So clearly they're going to be well above the tax next season, which will limit them to being the taxpayer MLE. And that's even though, where that projects at about 6.3 million for next season, that's just not going to be enough, I don't think, from Malik Monk. My guess is somebody may give him the full taxpayer MLE just because teams are always looking for shooting, and he's shown a little bit to do a little bit more as an on-ball creator and things like that. So yeah, I mean, unless he really, says, what, this is where I want to be, and they want to invest that full taxpayer MLE into Malik Monk, then maybe that's where he goes. But I don't know if that's the direction they're going to want to go either.
He has expressed a lot of gratitude towards being in LA and the Lakers just believing in him and giving him the
Yeah.
opportunity to do some of the things that he wasn't able to do in Charlotte. And he's talked about how much he would love to stay long term. But again, money matters. Money matters. And if some team comes along
Yeah.
and offers what would it be? The full mid level will be right about 11 starting next season.
Yeah,
It,
right in that
it
range-ish. Let me look. I'll tell you. 10.264.
okay. So
So
so a little bit
10.3
short
million.
there. Okay.
Yeah, about 4
Okay,
million more.
so I mean that's significant money. You're talking about almost double, right, in terms of what you're getting there.
Yep.
So I think that's absolutely going to be a factor for Malik Monk. The only situation, if you're a Lakers fan and you're hoping like, hey, maybe they can convince him to stay, either you do some sort of wink wink thing, hey, take our taxpayer mid level at just about 6, we'll do a 1+1, and then we'll sign you once we can get some bird rights on you. Maybe you can do something like that, but again, that takes a lot of faith from the player, and it's a risk in terms of injury and all of that. Or just that cap space right. There's not a lot of cap space out there this summer, but there's also not a lot of players that are worth spending cap space on. So, like I
Yep.
said, big picture, like, it doesn't look great for the Lakers keeping Malik Monk right now.
Yep. Yep.
All right, let's jump to the other LA team, the Clippers. Apparently, if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George cannot get back on the floor during the regular season, the Clippers are that's it. They're done. The Clippers aren't going to, suddenly say, "Oh, well, okay, now you're healthy during round 1 of the playoffs. Here you go," and toss them back in. They have to get back on the floor during the regular season, which I think all season we've been approaching this as though they're probably not going to be playing with Kawhi
Yep.
anyway. Then after Paul George got hurt, we've been saying he probably doesn't come back. I think there is still a little bit of hope out there that maybe they can get back there, but now we know the deadline is the end of the regular season to get them back on the floor and then have them actually available in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just it's too hard,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to be able to. You can't be one that would kind of presume maybe they would play in the play in. Well, you're talking there, that's that single elimination or pseudo single elimination, depending on where you land seed wise. So that turns into a situation where if you're the Clippers, that's not the time to be reincorporating guys into the lineup. And then you get into a spot where, let's say you get into the actual playoffs, also not a place to try to be
Mm-hmm.
reincorporating guys. And you're talking with Kawhi, he hasn't played all year, and Paul George has, by the time that rolls around, has not played in months. So that's not an easy just slide these guys back in. They're also not like gosh, Kyle Korver type of player, Duncan
Correct.
Robinson, where it's just, hey, run the floor, shoot,
Yeah.
or a PJ Tucker, play defense and run to the corners, right? They're not plug and play guys. These are, we're going to build the entire thing to run around you, the way we build this team out. So yeah, my guess is we're looking at them probably, if they're not back, I'll say within the next 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So give it, a little over a week to go in the regular season. If they're not back, then I think they're probably done. We're probably not going to see them play this year.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. It's the kind of thing where what you're talking about in terms of reincorporating them into the roster, into the lineup, it's not just about those guys getting back on the floor and getting their
Yep.
legs under them. It's about the other guys and how they react to them. So it's an adjustment for Kawhi, it's an adjustment for Paul George, but the entire team has to adjust to their presence. And that's
Hmm.
where you can see the Clippers just say, you know what, we're not going to have time. And really, they shouldn't force anything, especially health wise. I think this team is set up for the future. So I don't think they have to
Yep.
rush anything right now.
Exactly. Yeah. There's absolutely no reason. Yep.
All right, let's jump to the Philadelphia 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, Ben Simmons, this whole situation. Ron Gutterman did a great video for us earlier today about what's going on here because this is fascinating. It's just when I think this whole Ben Simmons thing is done and we're like, okay, the trade
No.
happened. Here we
Yep.
go again. I mean, I suppose legal experts probably saw this coming. People who were expecting him to file a grievance saw this coming. I didn't
Yep.
see this coming. I did from my perspective. I did not see this coming. That the grievance thing. Okay, I could see where Ben Simmons would try to get the money back, but this whole plot that Kyle Newbeck wrote about that Simmons is because we talked about this. Why would he go to Philly if he's not playing? Why bring him? Why go through all of that hassle? That the plan is
Hmm.
for him to go so that when the crowd goes berserk and gets upset with him, when he files a grievance, he can say, see, look, this is a work environment that I could have never possibly been in.
Yeah.
Therefore, it was impossible for me to complete my job. Therefore, I'm owed the money that was fine during the season for me not playing for the 76ers. This is next level stuff, and this is a twist that I didn't see this coming, Keith. Maybe I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still at this point, nothing surprises me with this whole situation anymore. And, anybody who thought that the trade has been made, it's over. Like, no, we got a long way to go before this one's going to be resolved. Because what this will turn into is you're talking $20 million,
Yeah.
right? So it's not a small sum of money, even when you've got, 100 million, like Simmons does. You're not talking, a tiny bit. So what's I think going to happen here is we're going to end up with this will drag out over probably the next 6 months to a year, as there'll be everybody will file their grievances, and there'll be all the necessary research phases that go in everything. Then there'll be hearings and everything else. What I hope does not happen is that this becomes something that takes Ben Simmons away from the floor at all for Brooklyn,
Right.
because strictly basketball wise, I'm beyond ready to move on. Like, let's go. Let's just get this thing moving. But we're going to see where this goes. Cause no one is forfeiting $20 million without a fight. It's just, that's not how that works. It's, you're gonna, put up that fight for it. So, and as far as them going today, yeah, I wasn't necessarily expecting that to be the reasoning, but I mean, it makes some sense, right? If you think about it. And what they can always do is, if it gets to be too crazy, just leaves and goes back and sits in the locker room and hangs out there until the game ends, and then he leaves with his team. So let's see where this goes. My hope is we get past tomorrow. No major thing. You want to boo, you want to kind of what we talked about yesterday, right over on Lakers Nation about Russell Westbrook. You want to boo, you want to yell stuff, just keep it above the line and you're fine. Do what you need to do, and then let's move on from this, and hopefully we see Simmons on the floor, in the next 5 to 10 days, and off we go.
Reading between the lines, this is coming out ahead of time, right? There's probably a reason for that. That's probably the Philly side letting everybody know, hey, this is what he's trying to pull here. Everybody pay attention. This is what's going on. Do we get like some tribute video or something for Ben Simmons from the 76ers tomorrow?
I mean, guys who played for teams for like a week
it's
get
happening.
tribute videos now. So yeah, we're gonna see. I mean, Doc Rivers, I believe genuinely, when he said it, was like, yeah, I think he does deserve a tribute video. Like, he was part of a lot of winning here and some pretty good teams. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to go well if there is one. I mean, that's certainly, and I don't think he necessarily wants one either. I think, if anything, that might be one where let's hold it in reserve if we need to get the crowd fired up tomorrow night, and then we'll play it and get them riled up and going. Maybe that's when you drop it in there. But yeah, it's just messy for sure, I think.
Hold off on calling Skylar Gray. That's not necessary at this point.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, we don't need to do that.
All right. The Warriors, they are working out Tyreke Evans, who already had a workout with the Milwaukee Bucks, trying to work his way back into the NBA. But Keith, this is not easy. I mean, he's been away from the game for 3 years now.
Ooh,
that's a challenge, right? Getting back into the league after being gone for that long, even if you're out for a year, that's not easy to do. I mean, in any sport, and if you're gone from the sport for any length of time, it can be difficult to get back up to speed, particularly when age starts to become a factor here. So I don't know. I don't really see Tyreke Evans as necessarily a fit with what the Warriors are trying to do, but it's just, it's noteworthy that this is a guy who at one point was pretty good in this league, and now he's going around trying to find a new landing spot. The Warriors are a team that was at least willing to take a look.
Yeah, I think, Warriors taking a look. The Bucks already worked him out, recently as well. Not only they've been out for 3 years, he's 32.
Yeah.
He wasn't really good his last season in the NBA with the Pacers. Now, maybe that was influenced by, maybe some of the substance abuse that was going on that has kept him out on this suspension. We don't know that, so I don't want to, say that's for sure, but maybe that is why his play dipped, because it did fall off pretty steeply from the prior season. At a weird point, age 28 to 29 season, that's not a point where you would really say, oh, what happened there, if it's not injury related or something else. So yeah, I mean, I hope he makes it back. I hope he has his life in order and he makes it back and somebody gets it. The thing that we said this at the time that he was reinstated, if that had only happened a couple months earlier when we were having, everybody under the sun was getting COVID call ups, it would have been huge for
Yeah.
him, right? Because he might have been able to get one of those hardship 10 days, come in, really show what he could do, kind of like a Lance Stevenson did, and show, hey, I can still play, and then maybe earn his way back to the league that way. My guess is this is hey, let's take a look, let's see what it looks like. And then teams do, they kind of keep their emergency list just in case, if something happens. He's a guy who's in a situation because he would be playoff eligible if one of these teams needed Adam. But my guess is this will probably be, he may need to be one of the rare vets that takes a summer league invite from a team
Yeah.
and goes to summer league, shows what he can do there, and then maybe gets a training camp invite. Maybe he has to do some G League time. Might go that direction. It's getting a little late in the year to catch on with a G League team too now because the G League season is almost over. It ends about roughly 2 to 4 weeks before the NBA regular season does. So that's probably why he hasn't gone that direction yet. But yeah, let's keep an eye on this one. But the other thing is the Warriors don't have a roster spot and they don't have an easy way to create one either. Like they would probably, the only easy, and I'm putting that in air quotes, cut would be Damian Lee. And he's been a guy who's played real minutes for them and had played productive minutes at times for the Warriors. So my guess is this was just, hey, let's do a check in, see where things are at. And then if we really have a need later, we'll maybe go down that path.
Wouldn't surprise me if he goes that summer league route. I mean, we saw Kenneth Faried went that route. But I want to say it was Michael Beasley too this last summer that was playing for the Rockets. So maybe we see that. Maybe he pops up in Vegas in July. We'll see. By the way, did you see this was it was a couple weeks ago now, Keith. I was excited. The NBA already released their summer league dates.
Yeah,
it's been the last couple of years. It's been like last minute where and you and like people like you and I were like waiting to make travel arrangements, all that kind of stuff, and we were finding out last minute. And it's nice to kind of have that normalcy again of okay, we already know when summer league's going to be.
Yeah, July 7th, Thursday, July 7th. Also in our world known as the day before Thor: Love and Thunder releases. So for what's really important, keeping the focus on that. And it's going to run to Sunday, July 17th. So I'm super psyched because I love summer league this year. I'm hoping to go. That is the plan. All the Smith household is all set for that. So that is the hopeful plan. My challenge with or I guess not challenge. The other thing I look forward to is the end of summer league kind of is when I can start thinking about maybe a vacation and winding it down for for a few weeks until we get right back into the madness of everything we get. With no Olympics this year, no World Cup this year, like this, it really has been since the bubble. It has been nonstop basketball straight through. So I'm really looking forward to this summer and kind of settling in.
The bubble pushed everything back, right? Because we had that we had that 4-month break, and so then between the end of the bubble and the start of the next season, it was like a blink of an eye, right? And then the next season starts.
Yeah, I mean, we went bubble right into the draft, right into free agency, right into training.
So for our world, even though games weren't being played, it was still a very busy time in our world. And then we jump into this next season, and even that season, because it went a little longer than a typical season went into the summer, this past summer was still shorter than what a normal. Now we're going to be back onto a normal schedule in terms of the break, which is good and bad. Because there's some time there, we get like mid-August, we're kind of looking around and we're like, what? There's nothing going on. But that's when we're going to be doing our Marvel movie shows and stuff like that.
Well, that's when I call it NB August on Twitter. That's when somebody will do the things like, I was looking at it. Are we sure that Clint Capella is not the best center in the league? Like somebody will throw that out there randomly, and it becomes like, man, we are deep into the NB August conversation here, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're still several months from there, but cool to see the summer league dates come out and you start doing a little bit of planning.
All right, let's talk a little bit about. Well, I guess we shouldn't leave the Warriors here. James Wiseman is going to play in a couple of
Yeah.
G League games to get his legs under him a bit. So that's good to hear that he's going to be back taking the floor. We still have heard that he's not expected to be part of the Warriors rotation or anything like that, but this is still a talented young player. You want him back, you want him healthy, and who knows? Maybe plans change all the time. So maybe he does become a factor for the Warriors at some point, but getting back on the floor to play in a couple of G League games.
Yeah, it's not like he has to, bypass 1986 Bill Walton as the backup center for the Warriors. Bill Walton, should have won Sixth Man of the Year for that Celtics team. May have. I don't think he did, but if he didn't, he should have. But it's not like he's got to overcome superstars behind Kevon Looney and Draymond Green in the front court. So I continue to believe, yes, I think they're making it very easy by saying we have no expectations. But if he looks okay, 10, 15 minutes a night, rest of the year into the playoffs. Great.
Yep.
Perfect. That's what you get. And then you maybe hopefully that's the launch into a big third season for James Wiseman.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That would be the hope from the Warriors side of things. Domantas Sabonis, jump over to Sacramento here from Golden State, suspended for 1 game, contact with an official. Certainly not what the Kings were hoping for. The Kings, It's another kind of lost season for Sacramento, but Sabonis, kind of their shiny new toy, the guy that they just went and traded for, and now he's going to be out for a game.
Yeah, he was very upset off a call, got a technical, then basically charged the referee and bumped into him and then was thrown out. So the Kings they're now 4 games behind the Pelicans. When you get down to this few games left to play, you start thinking that's probably about it. They've only got 15 games left. They're one of the teams that's played the most games in the league. They've already played 67 games. So make up 4 games, and with 15 left, that's a lot like that. And it's 5 in the loss column too, which starts to become the real important number to look at there. So, and as we talk about all the time, they have to climb San Antonio and Portland to do that. Climbing Portland might not be all that hard right now. True. I don't know if you've looked at some of the lineups they're rolling out there lately. Yeah, not exactly filled with NBA talent. Now, cool that those guys are getting their opportunity. I think it's great. Maybe they'll unearth a player or two for next season's rotation as they rebuild that roster, but not exactly trying their best. I also think San Antonio's concerned about getting exactly 1 more win this season to give Pop the record and then call it a year. For them, I don't know how hard they'll be playing. So I'm starting to think we might be set here in the Western Conference as far as the playing teams. But maybe someone can take a couple more swings in the pillow fight down there.
That's exactly what it is. Okay, Lou Dort, Mike Muscala, Ty Jerome, all out for the season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah. But again, this is a team that's they're not. Like, it's not good. It's not good, but this is not a team that's, in the playoff hunt or anything like that. Yeah. So they'll be cautious here, shut those players down, let them recover from various injuries, and then we'll see what they can do this summer with their draft picks. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about how their picks aren't quite as valuable as they appear on the surface, but still a lot in terms of just volume, quantity.
Yeah, people did not like that.
People didn't like. Oh, I saw that in some of the comments.
Yeah, there were a few comments, which fine, great. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they all end up awesome, but call me skeptical.
I mean, still the quantity of picks could turn into something. We'll see.
But what I will say, why this becomes more interesting. So in the case of Jerome, he's already had his option picked up, his 4th-year rookie scale option at $4.2 million for next year. Mike Muscala's got a $3.5 million team option. In general, you would look and say, yeah, they'll probably decline that and move on. But for what he's meant to that team, and they've enjoyed having him there, as long as whatever this surgery corrects, I believe it's an ankle surgery, gets him right, I think they'll bring him back. It's Lou Dort that his situation gets very interesting. So the Thunder have a $1.9 million team option, and it is a true team option. It's not a non-guarantee. So it's a true team option. And why they set that up that way is if he had broken out, which kind of did, and then he regressed a little bit, and then he kind of got back to being, the guy that we all liked in the bubble season. They set it up that way. So what they can do is decline that and make him a restricted free agent this summer, which means then they really control the process. They can then do what they need to do to get him on his next contract, really keep things, in their team control, with that. If they pick up that team option, yes, you get him at a very cheap 1.9 million, but then he's an unrestricted free agent after the season, and that becomes a little messy. My guess is when you have a surgery and it's a shoulder surgery for him, it's torn labrum. When you have a surgery that's going to shut you down like this, it's because you and the team know where you're headed already. As far as what the off-season plans are. My guess is that off-season plan is we're going to decline that, then we're going to get you signed to a good fair value contract, probably something in the range of the mid-level exception money to start it out, and then we'll go from there. That's just reading the tea leaves a little. We didn't talk about this before, and I want to bring it up here because it's just another contract thing that caught my eye. We did talk about the Spurs. They maybe we did talk about this, but I don't think we got into this detail. But they straight converted the contracts for Devontae Kaycock and Joe Wiseman. Right. But it was a straight conversion. There was no extra years signed, which tells me the Spurs are lining up everything to go for full cap space. Maybe we did talk about that, but if we didn't, okay. I just want to make sure I covered it.
Yeah, no problem. We want to make sure we check all those boxes and we discuss that because that's certainly something that could matter, particularly in an off season coming up. There's not a lot of cap space, so if you're a team that's got something to spend, then well, you're probably going to be a landing spot.
To chase DeAndre Ayton or Miles Bridges or somebody like that, right? Or facilitate a trade for John Collins, a guy that I thought they should have signed last year. I still think should be on the Spurs. That would be huge as well. One other thing on the Thunder, they haven't ruled him out for the year, but they said it's going to be a while for Josh Giddey. He's dealing with what they said was a very painful hip injury. So we may not see Josh Giddey again this year, which would be a disappointment because he's been
been really good.
NBA Chalamet.
All right, let's take a look. Let's go to the Wizards. The Wizards. There's actually a lot Wizards wise here to get through, and I guess we'll start with John Wall. He is actually open to returning to the Wizards. Kind of need a point guard now, and John Wall is open to returning to the Wizards. The only question for me is, how does he get there? Are you going to do a buyout on a $47 million
direct flight from Houston to Washington?
I would imagine. I would think so. So physically he can get there, but contractually, how do you get it? Are you going to do a buyout on a $47 million contract when we've been hearing, and maybe this changes, that John Wall is not interested in giving back money? So what does Houston do with him this offseason? Can they find a trade for him, and maybe you trade him somewhere to a team that will then buy him? I don't know. It's him being willing to go there would be more interesting to me if he was a pending free agent or something like that. But with $47 million still on his contract, I don't know exactly how that's going to work out. But if somehow he shakes loose, becomes a free agent, gets bought out, whatever it is, maybe Washington could be a landing spot for him. We talked about this before we came on. I don't see Washington just trading for him. That's too many salaries to stack up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's my joke was, well, they could trade the package they traded to with the Lakers
KCP,
for Russell Westbrook.
Kuzma.
KCP, Kuzma. They already traded Harrell, but substitute Daniel Gafford in his place or something. I don't know. But yeah, and they're not going to do that. I mean, that doesn't make sense. What I wonder, and would to why we're putting credence in this came from David Aldridge, who's been around the NBA forever, but knows the Wizards better than just about anybody else too, because he's in that area. And he basically said there were two things that kind of caught my eye in it is John Wall's not opposed to it. The Wizards do need a point guard. They don't really have a long-term point guard answer. And he also said it's not something Bradley Beal is opposed to either. So that's obviously, that's starting to put the pieces in place you need to make this happen. What I wonder with John Wall is it was never going to happen that he was going to buy out 2 years and $91 million on his contract. 1 year, 47. Let's say you lower that down to 35.
Yeah.
Right. Just to get free and go somewhere where clearly you were happy and you had the best years of your career, then off you go and you do that. Cause it's very clear. Even next year, he's not going to play for Houston. Yeah. It's not as much about him as a player, but that number is just so big. It's hard to make that trade. I fully realize that it's happened. I know it was on the table for him to go to the Lakers for Westbrook and all that. But reality is that's just becomes a very hard number to move. So yeah, my guess is that may become more likely to be a buyout because Houston's also not in a position to use cap space this summer anyway. So why not just eat the money, let them free, save a little bit off? Maybe that puts you in range of being able to use the full non-taxpayer with no worries. Then you can add something maybe that helps you longer term as you build around your kids, and off you go.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it two ways, right? You can look at it as you're the Rockets, you're gonna pay $35 million for nothing. Well, it's already kind of a sunk cost. You're going to pay
You're paying
47 million for
million
nothing.
for
If you
nothing.
can, so if you can pay
Exactly.
12 million less, like, okay, right?
Yep.
I mean, that
Yeah.
$12 million is $12 million. That's a lot. That's a
Yep.
lot of money.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that frees you. That puts you where you can definitely go. Then get it's not cap space, but it turns
no,
into all right. We can now we're nowhere near the tax. We can go use our full non-taxpayer MLE and go get a player who can maybe fit with Jalen Green, Kevin Porter, Christian Wood, and see if we can start to move this thing
and
forward.
even beyond the cap stuff, just organizationally, if you go to
Mm-hmm.
you go to a team owner and you say, hey, would you like to save $12 million?
Hell
Yes,
yeah.
yes, I would like to
Yep.
do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe
Exactly.
maybe that's something
Yep.
that
Yeah.
can be worked out there. Uh,
One other thing
yeah.
too, just with the Rockets too, they're starting to run up against it a little bit with roster
Mhm.
spaces. They're going to add 2 more first round draft picks this year, and they only have right now 2 true free agents because Wall is not going to opt out. That is 100% clear that he's not opting out. So they only have Bruno Fernando and Dennis Schroeder as true free agents. Yeah, they could waive a couple guys and clear roster spaces if they needed to, but those are more young guys that they'd rather have, and they like kind of being around on their team. So that's the other challenge is too, right? Eventually, you want to free up some roster spots because you want to be in a spot next season to kind of churn maybe the bottom of the roster a little bit. Maybe bring in 3, 4 guys to camp, really let them fight it out for a spot, see the one you like, kind of see, right? That's how they found Jay Sean Tate.
Hmm.
They brought him in, and he earned his way onto the team and has now become a relatively solid starter for them. So that's just another thing to factor in as we start looking at this a little bit more in depth. I don't think John Wall will be there next year. I
Yeah.
think more likely than not they'll come to some form of buyout agreement that sets him free and saves Houston some money.
And it makes sense too. Like John Wall giving up 1 year of your career already. That's
Yep.
tough. 2 years.
Yep.
I mean, there's something's gonna happen this summer, one way or another.
Yeah. And he's 32 at the start of next
Yeah.
season. So it's not
Clock's
yeah,
ticking.
you don't want to be going into free agency at before your age 33 season, not having played for basically at that point 2.5
Right.
years. That's not where you want to be. That's bad. I mean, we just talked about it, right? That's where Tyreke Evans is,
Hmm.
and look what's happening there. So completely different situations how we got to that point, but you might end up in the same spot of it's hard to find a job at that
Yeah.
point.
Absolutely. Still more Wizards. Kristaps Porzingis looked pretty good at his
Yeah.
Wizards debut. Kind of looked
Yep.
like his old self. Now, of course, we know you can never assume that Kristaps is like fully back or anything because things happen. But 25 points, 5 boards, 2 blocks in just 21 minutes. His Wizards debut. That's pretty solid. I mean, this is what we were talking about. Why, if you're the Wizards, you take this gamble. You took 2 contracts that you didn't really want anymore, and maybe Kristaps isn't worth what he's getting paid, but he's got a ceiling. He's got a higher ceiling than the 2 guys that you gave up. If he does hit
Mm-hmm.
that, then you come out ahead. So it's a worthwhile
Yep.
gamble for them. Again, it's just one game. We know he has trouble staying on the floor. We'll see what happens from here, but so far so good in that one outing.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where it's going to take well into next season to fully judge it. Right now, it looks like it could be okay for both sides because Dinwiddie and Bertans are both playing really well in Dallas. And I think maybe this is just one where everybody needed that change of scenery and a better fit in another
Hmm.
place. And I do kind of like the idea if I'm Washington of, all right, next year I've got KCP, Kuzma, Porzingis. I get Bradley
Yep.
Beal. I get John Wall back, maybe.
And here you go.
That's and then I've got Denny Avdia, Rui Hachimura, who very quietly, it's a super small sample size, but he was shooting over 50% from
Ooh.
three up until the other day. Starting to show a little bit more there off the bounce. Tomas Satoransky went back there very quickly. Maybe he would stick around. All of a sudden, you've got Gafford. That starts to look like, or you might have something
Hmm.
there. Not Probably not a contender, but that's a team that could get themselves in the mix for the 6th seed, maybe, if everything kind of goes right, guys develop, guys stay healthy. So, but especially when it comes to Porzingis and to some extent Bradley Beal, and obviously if they went the John Wall route, him, the health part is a major concern.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll see what happens there, but so far so good. For Porzingis, last thing, the Wizards did waive Joel Ayayi, and they signed Jordan Shackle to replace him. I mean, I've got a little bit of experience with Joel Ayayi. He hasn't quite clicked at the NBA level. We got to see him a lot with the Lakers in summer league and everything, and just things were just a bit off with him. Still interesting with the skill set, but Wizards do move on from him.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you'll see some teams do these now that the G League deadline is not a thing again this year. We're starting to see it turn into a little bit of a hey, we can do some roster shuffling with this. Joel Ayayi, the reality is he also struggled in the G League. He did not play poorly, but it was not great in the G League. Whereas Jordan Shackle showed a little bit more of ability to kind of get his own shot, create some off the dribble, and do some stuff. So I think it's just, hey, let's kind of change this out. And I thought something might be coming for them when they were left with really Raul Neto and then nothing else. And then it was like, hey, Charlotte, will you throw in Ish Smith? Because we need a point guard. And then we're also going to go sign Tomas Satoransky as well on the buyout market. It's like you had Joel Ayayi that you could have just played, as a backup point guard. And it was like, if you weren't willing to go there, then that starts to tell me, all right, you were ready to move on.
Absolutely. All right. I think that wraps things up for today. Got through a lot, but appreciate everybody joining us, front officers. Thank you for coming along for the ride here. Make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.